Hello everybody, welcome to TCOM 408. This is Dr. Mike Gerhard, Ball State University. Hey, in this lecture I want to introduce the basic concept of ethics. I believe we're all trying to live an ethical life in really an unethical world where we face all sorts of moral and ethical challenges on a daily basis. Ethics. Here we're really talking about doing the right thing as opposed to the wrong thing. What are ethics? Ethics refers to the standards of right and wrong that prescribe what we as human beings ought to do, usually in terms of rights, obligations, benefits to society, fairness, or some other virtue, but it's about doing the right thing. Ethics involves sometimes making some very hard choices and balancing conflicting obligations and duties and goals and values. Sometimes ethics creates quite a dilemma. Often in life, we stand at the fork in the road. What sort of ethical decision will we make? Now, ethics are very similar to other normative systems in society, such as law or the church. They're all really involved in trying to do the right thing. Only the law and the church have their own sorts of punishments. All right, ethics. They're so important to society. Why are ethics critical to the functioning of society? Think about it, the importance of ethics. Without ethics, we wouldn't be able to cooperate and trust and interact with each other. Ethics leads to a more harmonious society and a better and more pleasant society. Now, ethics are a highly individual matter, okay? And we all constantly have an inner battle between good and bad, between selfishness and altruism. Just remember, we're not born with a great sense of ethics. We're talking about character development here, and character development is a lifelong journey. You will always have an opportunity to improve your character as you make your way through the journey of life. Now, sometimes people think ethics, isn't that just a matter of feelings? Don't we have this feeling and know inside the difference between right and wrong? Well, yeah, sometimes it's a matter of feelings and emotions, but I always think that ethics should ultimately be about reasoning and logic. So maybe ethics is kind of a combination of emotion and reasoning. All right, most ethics professors and philosophy professors will tell you it's very important to engage during your lifetime in some ethical reflection. Well, what do we mean by that? We just means that we're constantly doing an inventory of our own moral standards and performance. We're cleaning house on occasion. Okay. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. He wanted us to engage in this kind of reflective behavior. So, ethics really involves the continuous effort to study our own moral beliefs and our own moral behaviors and conduct. This is ethical reflection. It's a very important human activity. All right, the first major assignment in this class is trying to take a look at your ethical framework and ask this question: what's your professional philosophy? Your thinking in terms of morality as it relates to the job, the career, the field that you want to go into. So, what we want you to do for this first assignment is to create a personal value statement. And these are your professional values. I want you to identify 4 to 6 of your core values and beliefs as they relate to your career goals and aspirations. Explain briefly why these values are important to you in terms of your future professional life, and maybe talk about what you can do to live by these values. I want you to identify your core values. Here's one example. How about the duty of self-improvement? You know, the world is constantly changing in terms of technology and professional expectations. And so maybe we have a duty to constantly improve our own condition, whether it's professionally, intellectually, physically, morally. Self-improvement. Now, I'm sure you can think of many, many other values that relate to the jobs and the careers that you're interested in obtaining. 2 pages maximum. This is due September 10th, 2020. If you've got questions, don't hesitate to call me or to send me a text. Take some time to reflect. There are many, many important values for us to consider, especially in terms of our professional life. And I'll look forward to seeing what you come up with in this assignment. All right, again, I want you to try and explain why these values are important to you in terms of your career, your future professional life. All right, back to the idea of ethics. What's an ethical dilemma? There are a lot of situations out there where the right and the wrong are very clear cut, but occasionally we will run into a real ethical dilemma. These are tough situations because they'll often involve a conflict between 2 different principles or moral imperatives, and we have to figure out which one is the most important, because if we obey one principle, we're likely to transgress the other principle. So when we've got 2 competing values or principles that are tugging at us, that's a true ethical dilemma. And these are very challenging situations. An ethical dilemma, again, it forces us to choose in a way that involves breaking some ethical norm or value or principle, okay, because we want to support the other one. So very, very difficult. And I hope when you come up with ideas for your papers and your classroom presentations that you'll find really challenging, difficult, true ethical dilemmas to discuss. Okay, so a real ethical dilemma is sort of like a mental, moral, spiritual tug of war. 2 important principles that seem to be in conflict. All right, let me mention the cornerstones of debating ethical issues. It's civility and tolerance and empathy and respect. Okay? We need to be careful in how we communicate our values, our opinions, and our feelings when it comes to ethics, because we can have very, very strong feelings surrounding moral issues. Now, we don't want to be too dogmatic. That means we're kind of childish and having to be right all the time. There's an old saying, you can be right all the time or you can be happy. Anyway, please avoid the dangerous pitfalls of dogmatism. What is dogmatism? That's the stubborn refusal to consider any challenges to your ethical point of view. It's the out-of-hand rejection of competing ethical theories or explanations. At least we should listen to all the competing ideas before we charge into our decision. So beware of dogma. Try to have an open mind and a tolerance when it comes to listening to other points of view. All right, another obvious thing is just be kind to each other when debating ethics. Don't use the ad hominem attacks, the personal attacks, or the labels, or the loaded language. None of that really helps us have a good conversation about ethical matters, a good, sane conversation about ethical matters. Now, I kind of like to reduce things to their simplest form, so let me do this here briefly. I think really the primary moral and spiritual dilemma is the problem of self-centeredness. The idea that it's all about me all the time. Now, of course, we have to take care of our self-interest, take care of ourselves, and be concerned about our self-preservation. But we can't be totally consumed with self all the time. That's selfishness. I think there's really two basic perspectives on the world. One is me first, that selfish perspective. It's all about me and what I can get out of the world. Versus at least thinking about others, maybe a more we first perspective, caring about something greater than ourselves. This is sort of like the difference between ethical egoism versus altruism. Egoism is the theory that says we should be selfish. It's necessary and sufficient for an action to be morally right if it helps us, if it maximizes our own self-interest. Egoism. Now, maybe that's a childish self-centeredness. On the other hand, you can think of it occasionally as independence, thinking and acting for yourself. Okay? Shakespeare said, "This above all, to thine own self be true." The singer Janis Joplin said, "Don't compromise yourself. You're all you've got." So if egoism means being true to yourself and your values, I appreciate that. But if it just means a kind of a childish self-centeredness, I think that that's something we can look at a little bit more critically. Now, the opposite of pure egoism and just self-absorption is the idea of altruism. That's a doctrine that holds that we have a moral obligation not to be thinking about ourselves all the time, but really to help and serve and to benefit others. And if necessary, do this at the sacrifice of our own self-interest. I think most of us do feel some moral obligation to others, to the feelings of others, and maybe occasionally to help the less fortunate in the society. Okay? Auguste Comte's version of altruism is pretty radical. It calls actually for living for the sake of others and not for self. I think we have to find a balance between egoism and altruism. Where do you stand on this scale? Do you think you tend to be egotistical or more altruistic? I think as I've evolved myself over time, I hope I've become a little bit more altruistic in my philosophy and my behaviors. Anyway, that's a little introduction to the idea of ethics, why they're important, and we'll continue to elaborate, of course, on the idea of ethics as we continue in TCOM 408. But for now, take care of yourselves, take care of each other and the community, and I will see you again soon. So long.